On this episode of the Ask Mike Reinold Show, we talk about ways that you can network at conferences.
The Ask Mike Reinold Show. Helping people feel better, move better, and perform better.
Before we get to the podcast, I wanted to make sure you knew about my free online course on the Introduction to Performance Therapy and Training. If you want to learn how to get started optimizing and enhancing performance, this is the course for you. Head to mikereinold.com/performance to sign up today. Welcome back, everybody, to the latest episode of the Ask Mike Reinold Show. We're up at Champion PT and Performance, answering your questions, PT, fitness, sports performance, career advice, anything we can do to help you be better at what you want to do. Wow. Come up with a new slogan. That was a bad slogan, but we got to rehearse these episodes more. But anyway, we are back here answering your questions. If you have something you want to submit for us to answer in the future, head to mikereinold.com, click on that podcast link, and there's a form you can fill out to ask us anything you want. Let me see, who do we have today? I like to mix it up. Let's see. We're going to start in the middle today. Today we have Dan Pope, fitnesspainfree.com. Right? Lisa Lowe, recently name changed to Lisa Lowe. What's your website again, Lisa?
Powerhouse Physio.
Powerhousephysio.com, right? That's awesome. So all that cool stuff. LennyMacrina.com, Dewesh Podell. Dewey, are you still Dewey's just all over Instagram? Just be on Instagram. Just be on our champion account on Instagram. And Kevin Coughlin here. Just wasn't another amazing episode, right, Len? Amazing. What amazing students do we have
Amazing. Today? Everything is amazing. We have amazing students. We'll start off in the middle with Morgan Kennedy. Morgan is from Findlay University. Fun fact about Morgan: she raises pigs and sells them for tens of thousands of dollars.
Wait,
I don't even know what that means. Oh, you didn't know about that? Oh, yeah.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, she shows pigs and
sheep.
Win a lot of money. And sheep. Yeah.
Oh, and wait, these are show pigs?
Yeah.
We're going to have to talk about this at work tomorrow. I like this. Good. Perfect.
Yeah.
Right, who else we have, Len?
We also have Zach Atwood from Wayne State University in the beautiful state of Michigan, and Kim Lay from Marist University College in Marist, Minnesota. Somewhere, Michigan, New York,
Morgan, what do we have for a question today, Morgan? And are there any oinks in this question somewhere?
There are no oinks, but I appreciate that Mandy from Ohio put this question up. So here we are. What advice do you have for students and other young professionals regarding networking at professional conferences?
Good question, Mandy. So I like this. So we just had the American Academy of Sports Physical Therapy. We just had our first annual meeting a couple weeks ago or so. I don't know when this episode is going to come out, but I think that's why Mandy submitted this question, because she was starting to think of stuff like that. And it was funny. There was a good amount of networking events where, it was about trying to gather people, a bit of a community. We're trying to have a little bit of that sense to that meeting where there's a bit of community behind it. And, it was funny, like if you're an extrovert, you thrive in that environment, right? You just show up to the bar, the hotel lobby for, the registration cocktail hour stuff, and you just start talking to people. So, extroverts that are in their wheelhouse, like, can dominate those settings because they're not afraid to go up to people and start talking. But introverts, I would imagine, that you don't even show up to the cocktail hour, right? Like you just avoid it completely. So I think this is a great question, because I think there's, maybe some strategies we can talk about that you can do this. We've all had good success stories and some funny stories of people at meetings that come up, right? We always talk about, like, the students, they like to, we talk about this at times, but they come up to me, they're like, "Hey, Mike, I really wanted to ask you a question. Like, what do you think about the shoulder?" Right. And you're just like, man, that's too broad of a question. Like, can we chat for a little bit first and get to know each other? But it was funny. I was with my friend, Chuck Thigpen. So great, PT researcher that you guys probably know his name. And it was funny. He was coming back from dinner and he joined us at the reception and he jumped right into the conversation. He was just like, "Hey, I'm Chuck. Hey, I'm Chuck. Hey, I'm Chuck. Hey, I'm Chuck." And he just introduced himself to like 6 students. And all those students then they had this open window to just boom, like talk to Chuck, which was amazing for them because he's a little more extroverted than other people, right? So before we get to the question, I'm going to challenge you, if you're at a meeting like this, especially if you're somebody with a little experience underneath you, is make it easy for people to come talk to you and to network with you a little bit and be a little bit more outgoing and welcoming and friendly, right? I think that's, super, super helpful. So, I'll throw that kind of back at the other people that want to be talked to, right? Not the other way. But all right. So good question. I know we all have been in these situations. Who wants to start off with some advice? I know we all go to big conferences and stuff like that. Like, who's got something to add? What's up, Dan?
I kind of say this. I classify myself kind of like an introverted extrovert, just because I think when I'm at work, I think I probably appear pretty extroverted, talking to my patients, having a great time. But then when I go home, I'm like, I just don't want people to talk to me generally. And that creates a lot of anxiety because you go to a big conference, you're like, man, I want to talk to these people, but, I don't really want to talk to anyone, so it's challenging. You put a lot of pressure on yourself. I think what's helpful is just to go into it and try not to stress about what you say and just have a nice conversation, introduce yourself, say, hey, I kind of like what you had said earlier. I've read some of your stuff. I'm a fan, And then if it goes somewhere, awesome. If it doesn't, don't put a ton of stress on yourself. That's okay. Sometimes you speak with someone and it ends up with something really cool down the line, and sometimes it doesn't, and that's all right. I think it's a matter of just continually putting yourself out, not putting so much stress on yourself, and just going and kind of doing it. So
I like that too. And I like how you said there, you don't have to go in there with like a big question. Because I think sometimes people, and I think that was kind of the point I was getting at with my thing too, is like sometimes people put so much stress on themselves. It's like, oh, I have to come up with like this epic question that I'm going to ask them so that I sound so cool and knowledgeable, something. But all you have to do is just go up and say hi, say, I really liked your presentation, or, hey, I've been following you for a while online, great stuff. Thanks. And right there, let that other person come back to you and either start a conversation, be like, oh, thanks so much. Where are you from? Where do you work? What do you do? If they're not doing that and they don't do that, then you can pretty much just like knuckle and take off, right? Like there's not that conversation is probably not going anywhere because that person doesn't really want to talk. But I think what you're going to do if you do that strategy of just like saying hi to people is you'll see the people that are a little more outgoing, and you'll see maybe some people that, you kind of jive with in terms of personalities. And I think, that'll help a little bit. So that was a good tip, Dan, is just go say hi, give them a compliment, and just say thank you. Right. Thanks for speaking at this meeting. Thanks for publishing that paper last year. I thought that was really cool. It really helped me in my practice. And that's it, right? You don't have to say hey, I wanted to talk to you about your methodology. Like, no, that's the last thing we want to talk about at a reception, right? So kind of think of it that way. But who else got some tidbits? What else have you guys done? Kevin, what do you got?
I agree with what you guys just said. So I don't have much to add. So I'll let Kevin go.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, so this wasn't at a conference, but I think if you get nervous at the conference type setting, when I met Dave Tilley was at we were working for the same company at a work party, and I knew he was getting into some of the CrossFit stuff and stuff like that. And it was just something I was super interested in. So, I just went up and introduced myself and talked to him. We kind of got to know each other through that. And I don't see why he couldn't do the same type of thing at a conference. Kind of what Dan said, if someone's presenting on something you're interested in, you can make it more of a one-on-one thing, and just, you don't need to expect to get something out of the interaction, but kind of just tell them you're into the work they're doing.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, go in there I don't want to say compliment them, but just show that you have maybe a shared interest. You have a shared interest in what you're doing, right, Dan?
Yeah, I think that flattery is huge, right? Because oftentimes when you're a student, you're going into a big conference, you're really trying to network with someone and you want something positive to come out of the situation. I think if you're looking for something positive, there's nothing better than maybe doing some research on the individual and then giving them a really sincere compliment. They love that, It's like if someone told me they really liked this article, helped them out a ton, like that feels extremely good to me. I'm more likely to maybe reciprocate along the line and say, oh, I met this physical therapist at this conference. I think they were great. You know, you can maybe check out them or something if they're looking for that network or that contact in the future. So
I think that's great, right? And people don't realize like that blog post that they read in 5 minutes that they really like, that took you like 3 weeks to write and put together, right? You put your heart into that thing. So if somebody comes up and says, like, hey man, that was really impactful for me, you're just like, thank you. Like I'm glad somebody told me that they liked my work and it helped them. So I mean, I thought that was pretty cool. But we'll see. Anybody else?
I think the moral here is you have to praise the person you want to meet in order to gain access to them.
I mean, that's a strategy. It's usually good strategy. But yeah, I mean, sometimes
we've seen things go bad because the other way it can be like the tell me about the shoulder thing. I mean, I think that's like the examples that we see more than like once. So we've seen it before. Where it's just like, man, this is awkward. There's an old Chris Farley skit on Saturday Night Live. Was like talking about something, and it's more, you remember that? Do you remember that thing back in the day? That was awesome.
That was awesome.
That was awesome. If it gets awkward, then hopefully that person that you're trying to meet will facilitate the conversation. Because hopefully, if you're the veteran PT, the older PT, you're going to recognize that and try to make that person more comfortable. At least I would,
I kind of like what you said there too. And I would say like another common thing like you could do wrong is don't be the guy that comes into that conversation as the contrarian or going in there looking to argue with that person or something or call him out on something. I mean, and I don't know what your strategy is there, but you're certainly not networking. You're not going to impress me if you come visit me and tell me the things that you didn't like about what I wrote about an article. Because man, that's just a snapshot of my brain and my day and my time. Like that's not everything in context. So, don't start that conversation like, hey, I really liked your presentation, but like, don't you think you should do A instead of B? You're like, that conversation is probably not going to go well, but let the relationship blossom and then get into a conversation. And I bet you the person's going to say like, yeah, of course I do both A and B. I just couldn't put that in my 12-minute talk that I was asked to do at this presentation. Right. But like, of course, yeah, I completely agree. But if you start off hot like that, I mean, there's a lot of people at these events. We're just going to go to the next person. Right. And just be like, you're trying to have fun. Right. But awesome. Good stuff.
Exactly.
So good. Anybody else have any tips or anything? Lisa, what do you do? Any things you've done in the past that you want to share?
I mean, I'm the awkward kid that doesn't really know how to say hi to people when I'm in like a really big conference. So I haven't really actually been to an in-person networking conference. I've attended a virtual one, and I would say that's probably even more awkward. They have this like virtual meeting room where you just like were this bubble that you could like move around and talk to people you were near. It was very strange. But in having gone to like a couple smaller networking things and sort of like kind of like Dan said, like put a lot of pressure on myself for trying to talk to a lot of people and that kind of a thing. In meeting more people since then, like everything we've talked about has been way more comfortable and worked way better of just being like, hey, my name is Lisa, thanks for your talk. I'm like, thanks for being here, like blah, blah, blah. And not really caring what comes after that. Cause then.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I wrote that in a newsletter like a few months ago, but it's you're planting a seed and that thing could grow or it won't, but it's, it is what it is. And you end up jiving with certain people in different ways and it works, but you plant that seed with just a mild conversation. You just see how it goes. So I like that. Couple of things I think I'd add to the conversation just that I was thinking of is one is remember, like, say you're at like, with the sports academy, we have teammates events where you get to like kind of mingle with like leaders and they pair up leaders with topics that you like. We did dine arounds, which I did not do because like that's anxiety for me, right? I don't want to go to dinner with 10 strangers, right? But lots of people did and they had a blast and that's good. But keep this in mind here. We just went through this, almost everybody on this podcast right here. And most of you probably think we're all extroverts, right? Because we're online, we have a presence, we educate, we're out there, but all of us expressed stress, anxiety, and how a little bit of these situations are awkward for us. So they're awkward for all of us. Keep this in mind. It's for everybody. If there's somebody you want to talk to and they're at that event, that at least shows you that they're willing to try. right? Because there was a lot of people that don't go to these events because they just want to go to have dinner with two people instead of like a big group of unknowns. So keep that in mind. If you're there at the event and there's somebody there, they probably want to talk to you. George Davies, great example. He's just sitting there. He'll talk all night to everybody. He's just really good and puts himself out there for everybody. So if you see George at a meeting, go talk to him because he'll talk back, right? And it'll be a great conversation, just that, as an example. But one other thing I'd add, and I picked up on this with our academy meeting, there's a couple of our past students there this week, Bo and Joey. They were both there, and I don't want to say they gravitated towards me by any means. That's not it. But there was a bond where they could come right over and start talking to me, and I put it on myself and I helped them. But then I introduced them to people that we were talking to, so that way then they had somebody. So sometimes you need to seek out like a gatekeeper, right, or somebody that can help open a door for you. And I did that intentionally because I was very strategic with that. I don't know. So Joey and Bo, if you're listening to this, like, I didn't tell you this at the time, but like, I mean, Bo comes over, he's talking to me, we're catching up, we're talking some stuff. And then I'm like, hey, here's Michael Laney. He's the vice president. And then they start talking, and then I start stepping away, and then I go talk to George, right? Or something, I'll leave and let them talk to see what happens. And then you do that a couple of times, you introduce them to everybody. So maybe you need a gatekeeper too. So kind of keep that in mind. So all good stuff. And remember, if this isn't your thing and it's not, it's not as cool on to do in person, there's other online ways that maybe you can network people that's a little bit less stressful too. So kind of keep that in mind. So great question, Mandy. Hope it helped. Hopefully you came up and spoke to me at this meeting, because this is after the meeting. So I wonder how it went for you, but thanks so much for the question. If you have a question like that, just head to mikereinold.com, click on that podcast link, and we'll keep doing these episodes. Anytime you guys have questions, we're going to keep doing these episodes to answer them. So thank you so much. Head to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, subscribe, rate us, review us, whatever you're supposed to do nowadays. And we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks so much.